Hello everyone and welcome to the Learn Solus Packaging Session 2. In this stream we are going to be going over the basics of packaging, such as setting up your system, setting up a bit of Git. We're going to be talking about a single package, Peak, and how to package that. Peak, in case you aren't aware, is a simple GIF creation tool. So we're going to be going through the packaging of that, and as a result, we're going to be going through our actionable macros. And in Peak in particular, it's CMake, make, and make install. So it's actually really simple and straightforward, and the build and run deps are really simple as well. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing you're going to need to do, obviously, is set up your system to actually do packaging. Now, the first thing we're going to do is install the system.devel component. So let's go ahead and do that now. And as you can see, voila, I already have it all installed. Who would have thought? So next we are going to install Git, because it's kind of obviously needed if you're going to be working with Git repos and providing a Git patch. So there's that. But we also need sol build, because that is the true build system, well, the true environment that we use. As you can see, I already have that installed. Now, with those installed, let's go ahead and talk about the sol build config unstable package. So this package contains the necessary configuration for building against the unstable repository. This is particularly important if the software that you're creating requires, or that you're packaging rather, requires a newly updated package in the repository, or if it requires one that has just been added. It may not be necessary to use unstable. There's always the option to build against the main repository, especially if you aren't comfortable running the unstable repository on your host system. However, if you're going to be doing a lot of packaging, then naturally it's going to make sense for you to use the unstable repository and set up the unstable config as well. That being said, you can build against both the main and unstable repositories. So it is completely possible for you to primarily build against unstable, however, then build against main and install those EO packages so you could actually test that on your system. Yeah, so IQ wants to mention you don't need system.devel for sol build, but I do also want to note that you do need things like make and stuff. So it's typically easier just to grab sol build. And plus you need Y package, which is in system.devel. So, but with that said, let's go ahead and install the unstable config. Oh, I can't type today. There we go. I have installed already. Who would have thought? So you can actually pass, and I will go ahead and get into just a couple of the flags here. So there is the -p or profile flag, and what you can do is, even if you are primarily using the unstable repo, you can actually pass main-x8664 to both init, update, build, and so on to actually target against that, or vice versa. If you want to primarily use main, build it occasionally against unstable, you could do that as well. So with sol build installed, let's actually go ahead and init it. So We'll do init. I'm not entirely sure if you need to pass dash profile. Maybe I could actually let me know, because I believe how it's set up is it'll default to unstable, but in the event that you actually need to pass it, we do unstable -x8664, which says it's already been initialized. So next up, well, actually, here's one thing I'll teach you is if your image ever gets out of date, you just need to update it, which is fairly simple. So replace the init call with update. Well, lol. This is what happens when you wake up and immediately do a stream without coffee. There we go. It's working. It's doing things. Okay, so as you can see, it's the following packages are already installed and aren't going to be installed again. So it grabs all this stuff and it checks that it's up to date. And if it's not, it updates it. So that way you don't have to download every single update over and over again whenever you're compiling something. So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to git clone common. Now what common is, it is a set of tools that we use throughout packaging. So what we're going to do is go ahead and git clone that. So it'd be git clone https git.solus-project.com/common. Now I have already cloned it because it takes forever to clone it for whatever reason. I'm gonna guess it's all the Python. But next we actually need to create a bunch of symlinks to content within the common folder. So let's go ahead and do that. So as you can see, we symlinked common makefile.common to our current directory, which for me, I just created an example repository stream. I have obviously another repository folder that I use primarily, and if you're going to be doing a lot of packaging, I recommend having a dedicated folder for that. We have a makefile top level, which is actually our makefile. And we have makefile.iso symlinked to the current directory. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we are going to create a packager file with .solus as the folder. And if we go over to our help center and you go over to all categories and then packaging, and then go to building a package, there is actually a section dedicated to setting up the packager file where you could copy the basic template, and it's really simple. It's just name equals and then email equals. So what we're going to do is we're going to do make dir-p tilde then .solus. And that's going to create it if it doesn't exist, and anything before it, although it's not really necessary. But the reason why I passed along the tilde, of course, is because we're not in our user directory at the moment. So the next thing we're going to do is do nano .solus /packager. And it would help, again, if I did it in the... There we go. And actually, I noticed an error in this thing. That packager thing needs to be there. Well, I guess it's a good thing to that I'm able to dynamically deploy help center updates. Anyway, so you actually need this packager thing. It's a good thing I actually went into this. And then you need email and name. As you can see, I already have my details filled out here because I do packaging. So next thing we're going to need to do is set up our get name and our get email. And that is going to be using, and I'll actually type some of it in. So here you have git config hyphen global setup means apply anywhere you're doing git stuff. User.name and then your name. And then we have user.email, and that is example at example.com is just an example. Now that's things set up. So let's go ahead and create the peak directory. And let's go ahead and cd into that. And now we will generate the package.yaml. So what we're going to go and do is we're going to go to our packaging section on the Help Center, and we're going to go to packaging practices. And as you see here, we have a generating a package.yaml. So you go here and it indicates that you use a script called yauto in the common scripts folder. So that's why we need common. And what we recommend and what I personally do is I have an alias. So I just do fetch YAML, and that will actually do no matter where I am. Home, so like my home directory, repo, that assumes you're using repo, of course, common scripts, yo.py. For the sake of the simplicity of this video, of course, I'm going to just be doing the common scripts yo.py, and what you do then is you just pass the URL to the archive, so that could be a tarball, zip, so on. So we add that. Let's go get the tarball for peak. You can actually get this at github.com/phw/peak. And then if you go over to the releases page, you see there's a 0.9.1. And what you want to do is you want to right click on the source code tarball here, this link, not the zip, but the tarball, just because it's more compressed. And copy link address. And it downloads it, it gets the SHA. It does a very primitive attempt at adding a version number. Bless it, it's simple. And then what we're going to do is do gedit package.yaml. As you see here, it generated a package.yaml with some real basics. The basic data that we need, the name, the version, the release number. This is always incremented by 1. Don't confuse it with the release number of the software. That's what the version is for. The source, the license, the component, so what group it belongs to, the summary, and the description. And then you have build dependencies. Sometimes this actually isn't even necessary. If you're really lucky with a package and it only requires something in system.devel, then you actually don't need to specify this at all, and you could actually remove it. And then you have the setup, build, and install. And actually, it got all these correct, which is quite amazing. So the obvious thing we're going to do is start adding the basic information to it. So the name of the software is Peak. So we're going to call it Peak, obviously. The summary is probably going to be this top GitHub header thing because it's really short. So we're going to go ahead and copy that. We're going to type peak in the version. We're going to remove the V in front of the version, right? We're going to type peak with the name, and anyways. We're going to copy paste that summary into the summary. And then we're going to scroll down here, and you see in this about section that they actually talk a bit more about it. It says it creates animated GIF screencasts using FFmpeg and ImageMagick. So we're going to go ahead and copy paste that just to be a bit different, I guess. Next thing we are going to do is we are going to get the license. So this has it under license. Sometimes you'll see it under copying or license.md or copying.md and so on. And as you can see here, it says it's GNU GPL public license version 3. Now by default, we set it to GPL 2.0, but obviously the license indicates it's 3.0, so we are going to make that the SPDX compatible or compliant license, which is GPL-3.0. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to determine what the component is. Now, in my opinion, this is more a video tool, but it could also apply to graphics. So that would be multimedia.video or multimedia.graphics. But if you want a list of components, what you could do is hop over to your terminal again. And you do EU package LC, and that is short for list-components. And as you can see here, there is a lot of components ranging from different desktop components to game components and multimedia to networking, so like web browser and utilities, to Office, a lot of different programming stuff. You have security and crypto and so on. So let's go ahead and do multimedia.video. Just because I know there's someone out there that's going to rage because GIF isn't technically a video, it's an animated format. It's graphics, so I just like being a troll. So we're going to go to the requirements here. Now, because I've packaged this before, I actually know what the run deps are. It indicates that libkeybinder3 is a runtime dependency. It isn't. It actually works fine. It works completely fine without it. I believe it's just utilized for some Xorg related key bindings if you desire those. So what we're going to pay attention to is GDK, FFmpeg, and ImageMagick. Now it does specify glib. However, glib-devel is always going to be in system.devel, so you never have to worry about that. So what we're going to do is determine what the package config is for GDK3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do EU package info lib GDK -3 for the GDK3 version -devel. And this contains all the development files, the package configs, certain shared objects. And you can see it spits out a bunch of information, including a bunch of reverse dependencies. But that isn't what we're looking for. What we're looking for is the provide section, and this indicates the package configs. Now you only need to specify one of these. So what we're going to do is we're going to specify this package config GDK plus -3.0. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm a bit lazy, or I should say I'm a bit efficient, so I'm going to go ahead and copy paste this package config. Next up, we are going to determine what the package config is for FFmpeg in ImageMagick. So let's go ahead and do the same eoPackageInfo and then the -devel for FFmpeg. And as you can see here, it's much simpler. So what we're going to do is we're just going to copy and paste like libav format or something. To reiterate, you only need to use one. It doesn't matter which one you use either because it pulls down the same devel package regardless. So, and then of course ImageMagick. And as you can see here, it specifies package config ImageMagick, which is fine. It specifies Magic Wand, Magic++, whatever. So let's just go ahead with the first one because it's simpler and it's also just the first one. And it says we need a window manager with compositing. And we happen to have that on GNOME Shell and on Budgie. And basically any modern desktop environment is going to have a compositing window manager. I don't believe Marco actually is a compositing window manager, but anyways, we also need Vala. Vala is not part of system.devel, so we're just going to need type Vala. We don't actually need the development libraries for that, so that's why I specified only Vala. And then what we're going to do is we are going to build this package. Now, before you build the package, what you need to do is you need to copy paste you need to generate a file which has an echo to include the makefile.common from our top level directory. So I copy pasted that, and you can too by going over to the building a package. And going to the setting up common here. And then it says next inside the folder of the package you are building, run, and then the command, just copy paste that. Now if we do an ls, you could see we have our make file and we have our package.yabl. So let's go ahead and just run make. Enter our password. And of course, it has to install all the dependencies. That could take a bit. Obviously, if you have them cached, it saves having to download them from the repository, so that makes it a bit faster. But it's done already, so there you go. So as you can see, what we did was we just compiled it, and our tooling converted our actionable macros over to actual bash commands. As you can see, it generated a eopackage file. So let's go ahead and do ls eopackage. That will list the contents of the eopackage. And as you can see here, it has the binary, which is peak. It has the applications. It has a dbus service. It has a glib schema, so for settings. And it has a bunch of icons and locale information. Now, I already have this installed, but what you could actually do is do sudo eopackage install. And then I have an autocomplete thing, so I just type peak and it autofills it. You do that, and it installs it. As you can see here, it might not look like much, because really all it looks like is a transparent box with a box shadow, and then a header bar with some settings in here, and then a big record button. But that's really as simple as it needs to be. So basically you hit the record button and it makes a GIF. Well, you hit the record button and then you hit finish and it makes a GIF. So, but now that we've made a package, obviously we need to submit it to the submit it for package submission, or patch submission I mean, on our dev tracker. So what we're going to do is I ran make clean, and that just double checks that there are no EO packages in the in the directory. We need to initialize the Git repo. And now, if we do a Git status, you see we have a bunch of untracked files. So what we're going to do is we are going to do git add and star. And what that will do is it'll add the make file, it'll add the API used libs, it'll add the package.yaml, and it'll add the pspec. Obviously, you should double check what files are being committed, just to ensure that you don't have any EO package files that you're going to be adding to your patch. So with that, we do a git commit. And then what I'm going to do is type initial commit of peak. I had to enter my passphrase there. What it did was it created an initial commit. So if we do git log, you will actually see my author information, so my name and my email. You will see my git commit message, and you'll see it's SHA-1 some, so, well, and obviously the date. But obviously you can't just say, okay, I've git committed and then git push. If it's a new package or an update to one and you're not the maintainer of it, of course, or you don't have push access to that particular repository, then naturally you need to submit something called a patch submission. And so what you do is you generate a git formatted patch using git format -patch, then n1 that specifies the number of commits. So we're doing 1 commit. And it created it right there. So 0001 -initial -commit of peak.patch. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to dev.solus-project.com. And we're going to obviously sign in. If you haven't created an account, you will need to do so. You will click this top plus button here. You'll create a task. And what you're going to do is you're going to type peak as an example, because that's the name of the package. You're not going to set anyone as the default assignee. And you're going to type some description like, you know, peak is an awesome, let's just type one. Next, what we're going to do is we are going to attach a file. So that's going to be this like cloud button here. I'm going to choose files. I'm going to go into my repository stream folder here. We're going to go to peak and we are going to submit that patch. So we're going to click open. We're going to click upload. As you can see here, it has been attached and automatically embedded, as you can see in the description preview. So what we're going to do now is we are going to add the patch submission tag. And we will then create new task. And voila, we have submitted our patch to the dev tracker for review. Now, if maybe someone wants to review this, they can. But essentially what the process is in that regard is I would then download the patch. I would open it. And as you can see here, it has all the information, like the additions. So it has the ABI used lib, so it indicates what is actually used. It has the package info. And it has all the information about the contents. Now you're probably saying, Josh, your ABI used libs. ImageMagick isn't in there. How are you gonna add that? Well, hypothetical individual, this was intentional. The reason why it's intentional is I want to introduce you to simply re-uploading a task or a patch and the art of git squashing and that sort of fun stuff. So let's go ahead and go over to our package.yaml. And let's go ahead and add as our run dep ImageMagick, because that's needed for the convert tool. We're going to type ImageMagick. We're going to keep the rel the same because this isn't in the repo yet in our hypothetical situation. As you can see here, we have modified our package.yaml and we have that patch in there. So let's go ahead and remove that patch. And let's rerun make. And if you want to learn more about the actions that this cmake, make, and make install actionable macros are doing, what you could do is you could go over to package.yaml, which is in the packaging section, and scroll down to actionable macros. And there's a bunch of them. There is autogen, cmake, configure, make, and make install. You could apply patches. There's Haskell and Meson actionable macros. There's ones for Perl and Python that make it really simple. We have ones for Qt, so qmake, which is for Qt5, and qmake4, which is for Qt4. And you have a bunch of variable macros as well. In addition, you also have variables. As you can see, our package is already built. And as you can see, when we do a git diff, it adds ImageMagick as a run dep. Now, how do you verify that? If you do EU package info, peek, you see the dependencies, it specifies ImageMagick now. So it won't change the ABI used libs because it's not actually using that library in the sense that it's not using one of its ABIs. But if you install this, it will install that package. That package being ImageMagick. So we're going to run make clean again. As you can see here, we have the modified package.yaml. We're going to git commit. So I'm going to do added run dep. And as you can see here, if we do git log, we have the added run dep and we have the initial commit of peek. Now, in my opinion, and something we have the tendency to do, is require that patches only be an initial commit or a squashed commit, so a singular one. That just saves a lot of time and hassle for yourself And for us that have to add it into the repository, because when we apply patches, we only have to apply one. So what we're going to do is we are going to rebase and squash our commits. Let's go ahead and try to remember that. Lol. Yeah, okay. Need a single revision, what? It's all falling apart on me. Why you no work? Okay, this is fun. Let's go ahead and look at it. This is what happens when you do a stream. With barely any sleep. Invalid upstream head 2. Oh, wait. Maybe that? Nope. LOL. There we go. Yeah, it was confused because we obviously didn't have an origin there. Because it doesn't exist, because it's a new thing. So what we're going to do is we are going to pick the initial commit, and we are going to squash the added run deb. And as you can see here, it has the combination of the two git commit messages. And we have the initial commit of peak as the new git commit message. If we do git log, you see here, we have the initial commit of peak. What we're going to do is rerun our git format-patch n1, and it generates a new thing, a new patch. So if we go over here, let's go ahead and refresh. And we're going to edit task. We're going to remove that. We are going to upload the file again. And then we will save the changes. So as you can see here, it will do the edit the task description. So we do show details, and you can see it updated from 13490 to 13491. Now if I download this patch and open it, as you can see here, our run depths, we have specified image magic. So what is the process after this? So typically myself, Brian, or another individual on the triage team, such as Peter, will go ahead and review your patch for inclusion into the repository. I do want to make note that if you're adding a new package, one that isn't in the repository yet, as opposed to an update, what you will want to do is submit a package request so we can actually evaluate that package for inclusion in the repo. But if you're doing an update to a package, alongside, say, an initial commit, what I'm going to teach you now is how to actually update a package. So this one's a bit trickier. I'm not actually even sure we have documentation on it. We do. Updating an existing package. So when you update a package, what it will do is, well, there's two things. You could do a make bump, and what that will do is it'll increment the release number by 1. So if it's at 1 now, and you do make bump, it'll be 2. And what that is useful for is, say, if you have updated a package, say if you are updating ImageMagick and well, if you need to rebuild ImageMagick against an updated libwebp as an instance, what you would do is you would bump it so it gets rebuilt. But what we are going to do is we are going to test out the user shared y package yupdate.py script here. And as usual, there's a recommended alias just to keep things simple. But we're Rebel, so we're not going to use that. So we are going to directly copy paste that into the terminal. And what we do is we then specify the version. So what we'll do is we'll do 091 again. We'll just go back. Obviously, this isn't a normal use case because you don't update it to the exact same version it's being updated to, well, that it is already. That would just be a make bump to increment the release. But for the purposes of this example, we're just going to copy paste the tarball URL. You will go and get it. You'll get the SHA and all that. I have this this deep git diff thing which strips out white space and stuff, but really if you just do git diff, you see it actually did the exact same thing as our make bump because we have the exact same version. But of course, if you specified a different version, so let's actually go ahead and do 090. As you can see here, it changed the version number to 090 from 091. It updated our release, so it incremented it, and it changed the source location and the SHA. So what we would then do is we would go through the exact same process of building it. So it generates the pspec, any ABI changes. So any of the ABI files, we would add those. And then rather than a commit message of the initial commit, what we do is say updated such and such. So updated peak to 0.9.0 or 0.9.2 if there's one in the future, which I imagine there will be. And then what we do is we create a patch, and it's the exact same process of then going to the dev tracker and going to the patch submission section of that. And rather than, of course, doing an initial commit, you would just publish the patch for the updated thing. And then what I would do, and what someone else would do, is we would download this. We would assess it, right? So we would say, okay, well, this looks good. The license is correct, it seems, or at least it's compatible. The component is correct. Okay, it's not in something like system.devel or network base, so that's good. They have sorted their build depths alphabetically, so that's good as well. They're using the appropriate actionable macros. There's an ABI use thing. There's a make file even, which makes it a bit easier. So then what I would do is I would go in. I'd be like, LGTM, bro. I would assign it to myself because I will be landing it in the repo. I would change the priority to something like normal typically. I'll change the work border like the columns, indicating that's ready for merge. Of course, if there's an issue with your package, I will give you feedback, or someone on the triage team will give you feedback and move it to the awaiting fixes column. So for instance, if they caught the image magic run depths thing, then they would indicate that, and then you would follow up with a updated patch. And that's it. I do set sail for adventure. And then I would go and I would, if it's a new package, I would git clone it. I would then add your patch and then make publish it. Of course, I would do additional checks for security reasons, such as CVEs. And then when it's landed, I'll say landed as a blah, blah, blah. Mark as result. And done. Simple as that. And it's even going to get simpler in the future as we improve our tooling and improve our infrastructure. So thank you for tuning in. If you're interested in more complex matters, I welcome you to go over to our help center. You could do that by going over to solus-project.com and clicking help, and then going to all categories. And then we have this packaging section, and it will walk you through how to request a package, how to submit a package, so the patch for it, building it. It'll talk to you about the package inclusion policy. So when we're evaluating requests, what the policies we have are in place. We have the package.yaml. We have these packaging practices, which is very great. Which is great if you need to apply patches such as to CVs, or install extra files, which would be in our package files variable as the files directory in the relative directory of your package.yaml. And I will actually be having a stream next week where I will be going over more complex matters, and we'll be walking through a Haskell package. We'll be walking through Python. We'll be doing a more complex thing, not terribly complex, but it'll go through a few more dependencies, so it'll be gnome weather. And if you want to familiarize yourself with that, we actually have a Git repo with a bunch of source here. So if you type weather, for instance, in the search box, you see here we have this gnome weather, and you could actually see the history of a package from the initial commit to the updates. And you could actually check out the source for it as well. So thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this stream. I know it certainly has been interesting for me, and I will certainly keep note not to wake up and immediately do a stream in the future. And if you have any questions, you're obviously welcome to ask them in #solus-dev whenever. And assuming someone is around to assist you, assistance will be given. But thank you for tuning in, and bye-bye.